if you mismanage money, dude, it'll run from you.
Right.
Time's the same way.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, like if you don't manage time, it'll run from you.
For sure.
Yeah, and you just get to the end of the day, or you get to the end of the week, or sometimes you get to the end of the year. Let me just encourage you. Somebody's watching this and they're just like, man, that's been my last several decades.
Yeah.
Like you almost feel this regret and discouragement. Like the good news is God will restore the days before you, right? If that's you, this is not intended to say like, man, shoot, that's me. I've wasted all these years. No, you can start from right now and create an unbelievable future. But the reality is, if you don't control your day, man, your day will control you.
Yep.
And if you don't control your time will control you.
When I sit down as a self-employed man, like as a business owner, as whatever you're trying to lead, when you sit down, you have a block of time to get something done. Eliminate the distractions. If you know you're a person that's easily distracted, well then think about that prior to doing the thing you're trying to do. What is it in your life that you need to eliminate? Maybe it is the phone, maybe it's the TV, maybe it's food, right? Or maybe you're checking your notifications or whatever it is. But if you're going to live the life God's called you to live and accomplish the things that he's called you to accomplish, man, number one, you got to start with eliminating distractions. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the A Leveled Up Life podcast. As always, Brandamier, Courtney here, along with Paul McClain, to help you level up your life in all the areas that matter most. Hopefully, you've been getting a lot of value out of this podcast every single week, whether you listen to it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you listen. Man, we are grateful that you're tuning in, you're leaning in, and hopefully we're helping you level up your life in, like I said, all the areas that matter most. So do us a favor, before we get into the podcast, leave a comment, leave a review, share this with a friend. Let's get that out of the way right now because we always leave it for the end and just get it done now. So I'm excited to be here, man.
Hey, good to be here with you again,
every
brother.
week, get to sit down. I feel like get a little bit smarter, sitting here with you, conversating with you, and really bringing our conversations that we have all the time to light, and hopefully it's helping people.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing, man. I would just say this, and our topic we're going to dive into, man, it's an important topic, like schedule for success, how to eliminate that burnout that everybody's got, where they're just like, have you ever said like, I just wish there was more time, or you just feel like you're depleted, you get to the end of the day, you're like, man, I want to be there for my kids, I want to be able to have that intentional conversation with my spouse, but like I just don't feel like it. Like I just feel like
every week I feel like that.
And so there's some practical things that will help in those areas, and man, that's life. If you can level up your energy, right? Increase your ability to have more time to do the things that matter most, increase your intention. Like that's like I believe those are the keys to unlock these new levels. And so we're going to dive into it. But man, Brand, to your point, like I thought about this the other day, like when we just kick it, we get together, all the cousins are hanging out, families are hanging out. Like our conversations, they always bring value. It's not just like small talking, do a small talk and what have you here and there, but it's thinking about like, how do we improve? How do we think bigger? And the reality is, in order to get to new levels, you got to think at new levels, right?
100%.
Your thought process that you're at right now, that thought process is going to keep you there. In order to think or get better, you got to think better. And so I'm excited to cover this, man, with you. And guys, I hope this, in fact, every week we sit back, we talk beginning of the week, and we think about like, what topic do we believe is going to make the biggest difference for people? And that's our heart and our intent, is for you to leave better than you hopped on, right? And you can leave with some value. So definitely subscribe so you're aware of this and you're updated and you're alerted so you know what's going on and when it's taking place. But let's dive into it, man.
Yeah, so how to plan, how to schedule, the importance of having a schedule, the importance of not putting things off. It's always like, we have these big goals at the beginning of the year, right? You write them down December 31st, you wake up January 1st, and you look at your list, and none of them's gotten done yet. Yep. You hope it's gotten done, but it takes action on our end. And what I've realized, at least for me, is that, man, I've got way more time that I'm wasting than, like, if I just look at my schedule, I go, man, I'm wasting a ton of time. Mm-hmm. Like, I got to get intentional about how I'm spending my time, because I know, like, I got a purpose, I got a plan, I got a vision, I got a future, I got things I want to build, I want to grow, I got things that I feel like God's called me to do. But if I have no plan and I'm just kind of winging it every single day, I'll end up wasting way too much time and not getting anything accomplished. And so how do we eliminate wasted time? How do we plan our day for success? I heard one pastor say this. He said, God's not going to hold you accountable for what you accomplish here on earth. he's going to hold you accountable for what he called you to do here on this earth.
That's good.
But if you think about it, man, we all got a purpose and a plan and dreams and like things that in our heart that we feel like God's called us to do. And if we're not doing those things, we live a life unfulfilled. And so it's like, man, if you got a job, but you know, like there's something else out there for you, there's a business on your heart, but you're not doing it because you say, I don't have time.
Right.
Or if there's a book in you that, you know you want to write, but you're not doing it because you don't have time. Well, you probably do have time. You're just spending all your time in the wrong places.
Yep.
Right. So he's going to hold you accountable for the things that he's called you to do. Right. So for me, it's like, how do I plan my life for success? It starts by planning our day for success.
Yeah.
You know? And so let's talk about it. I think we got 5 points we want to jump into.
Sure.
What does that look like?
Man, time's like, if you think about it, it's like money. Like if you mismanage money, dude, it'll run from you.
Right.
It's like, where did it all go? Just, it floated away. And time's the same way.
Yeah.
Right. At the end of the day, like if you don't manage time, it'll run from you.
For sure.
Yeah, and you just get to the end of the day, or you get to the end of the week, or sometimes you get to the end of the year. And let me just encourage you, no matter, if somebody's watching this and they're just like, man, that's been my last several decades.
Yeah.
And it's like you almost feel this regret and discouragement. Like the good news is God will restore the days before you, right?
Come on.
And so it's like, if that's you, this is not intended to say like, man, shoot, that's me. I've wasted all these years. No, you can start from right now and create an unbelievable future. But the reality is, if you don't control your day, man, your day will control you.
Yep.
And if you don't control your time will control you.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things where it takes such high intention, or if you want to get better, it takes awareness and intention to say, okay, what can I eliminate? So that's point one, is like, what do you need to eliminate in your schedule?
Yeah.
You know, because for me, like, think about when you started working and you started your business. I think about when I started my business, and all of a sudden I became self-employed, right? I was working a job, you know, I was pumping septic tanks at 18. 19, I get introduced to the financial services world by my cousin, and perfect timing because I had a baby coming, and I was like, dude, I can't. We don't have no money.
Right.
Like I told Tasha, I was like, babe, we're gonna have to. You have to breastfeed Peyton until she's like 17 because it's free, and we're gonna have to wash these diapers off and reuse them. Like we ain't got no money making minimum wage, and so I got introduced to that. And what I realized was this, Brand, when I had my job, I had to be there at a certain time. I mean, I had to leave at a certain time.
Right.
It was structured, right? I knew what I needed to do, so I didn't negotiate with myself about getting out of bed at a certain time because I knew that I had to go to work. If there was a consequence if I didn't do that.
Yep.
But I remember being self-employed, and it was almost like this badge I got of entitlement. Like, oh, now I could do what I want to do when I want to do it. And I remember, you know, my wife called me up, and this is still vividly because this is when it kind of like dawned on me. She was like, it's a Monday. I'm supposed to be booking appointments for Tuesday, Wednesday to go see these clients, right? And she's like, hey, babe, I'm going to the zoo with my mom today. Do you want to go? I was like, sweetheart, you forgot I'm the boss. Like,
right.
Yeah, I want to go. Of course I'm going to go. I can do what I want to do when I want to do it, you know? So guess what I did? I went to the zoo, and what I realized is that, you know, self-employed is unemployed if you don't go structure yourself.
100%.
And I remember how that really kind of gave me this realization that, man, time will just float away because those first 3 to 4 weeks, Brian, like I felt just as the same at the end of the day as far as exhaustion and all these other things. And I still felt like I had no time. But the moment I put big blocks in, right, as far as all these things that matter most, big blocks with my family,
Right.
big block with my work. Okay, let me plan out what's going on for the next, 3 to 4 weeks. I got this party here, birthday party. I got this and that. And I started to block it out. I was like, dude, I can get done so much more with the time I've got if I start saying no.
Yep.
So sometimes a no holds more value than a yes. And I think that where we have to sit back and say, what is this yes that I'm getting ready to say? What does that require? Not just from time, but my emotion, my energy, all that, right? And I'll say this last point, but like, I remember going on date nights and starting that, that habit years ago. And I realized that I have to eliminate some of the stuff in our conversation to actually make sure that it's valuable. Because if all of a sudden I start talking about like spending or something, right, then now I can't be intentional with what
Right.
I'm trying to do there.
Yeah.
Because every thought, every feeling, every action, it holds a quantitative value, not just the time, but the emotion. How does this thing that I'm going to say yes to make me feel?
Right.
And all that stuff leads into everything. So everything matters. And so I think first thing is looking at your schedule, saying, man, what do I need to eliminate? Do I need to eliminate some Netflix stuff?
Yeah.
What's holding me back, right?
Well, the life that you want to live is never going to happen unless you're organized, right? And so for me, it's almost like this illustration of the distracted life is so easy to live because there's distractions all around us. It's like what you just said. Like, hey, you should be working, but you get a phone call about the zoo. And next thing you know, you're thinking about lions, tigers, and bears.
Yep.
You know, like you're just distracted by life, which is funny because I don't know where I heard this or learned this, but like a lion tamer, right? Someone who tames a lion at a zoo for a living. He has 3 tools he brings into the cage. He brings a pistol, he brings a whip, and he brings a stool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the first way to tame the lion is to show the stool to him because you're trying to distract him. So if you show a 4-legged stool to a lion, he gets distracted by all 4 stools, and it causes him to be paralyzed, to be stuck, to be confused, and not move, right? That's, I believe, like Satan's tactic for us. He brings distractions to our life, and what do we end up being? We end up being paralyzed, stuck, weak, confused, and taking no movement, and now we're not accomplishing the thing that we're called to do, right? So that's his plan, is to distract us, to get us like thinking about other things. It's like when I sit down as a self-employed man, like as a business owner, as whatever you're trying to lead, when you sit down, you have a block of time to get something done. Eliminate the distractions. If you know you're a person that's easily distracted, well, then think about that prior to doing the thing you're trying to do. Like when I write my sermons every week, I know I'm easily distracted. And so like Wednesday mornings from like 8 to 12, I don't have my phone because I will answer every text. I'll go on Instagram 100 times. I'll check Facebook. I'll check my emails because I'm procrastinating the thing I know I should be doing. Yeah. So I don't even bring it into my office. And so I have like 12 missed calls by the time. I think you called me yesterday when I was trying to study, and you called me back at 2 o'clock. It's because I don't have my phone on me because I know me, right? And so whatever your thing is, man, you got to eliminate the distraction and focus on the thing that you're trying to do. So what is it in your life that you need to eliminate? Maybe it is the phone. Maybe it's the TV. Maybe it's food, right? Maybe you're like, you work from home.
You get
bored. And so every, 17 minutes you're checking the fridge again as if something else is going to appear. Maybe you're, checking your notifications or whatever it is. But if you're going to live the life God's called you to live and accomplish the things that he's called you to accomplish, man, number one, you got to start with eliminating distractions. It's like the first thing to a good schedule. So what does that look like? Second thing, what do we got?
So second is automation. So automation, I think for one, this is one of those things where you sit back and you think, okay, what can I automate today that's going to save me time tomorrow, right? And I think that, so for me, I used to ask myself, what's the most important thing I can do today? And then I started thinking like, okay, a better question is, what's the most important thing I could do today that's going to have the greatest impact on tomorrow?
That's good.
And so sometimes we got to spend a little bit more time to free up more time in the long run, and that's what automation is. And so the whole theory is like, if we can sit back and say, what are some things in our life that if we put a system in place, all of a sudden now we've got more free time to do the thing that's going to yield us the most profit in money, profit in relationships, profit in time, all these other things. And so one of the things that I think is practical, right? If we're going to get into the nuts and bolts, like what can you practically do to automate something? It's like people that are still cutting bills, like cutting checks.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you got to think about it. You got to write it, like set it up on auto payment, right? Just set it up on automatic reminders. Like, dude, I'm like you, I'm easily distracted. Like I remember one day I pulled up my phone and I was supposed to be looking up like something about a topic I was covering on the Zoom call. And before I knew it, dude, I was looking at like somebody that went to my high school, his ex-girlfriend's like sister, and she had just like got her law degree and she went to school at the same time I did. And I started judging myself like, dude,
right.
God, I'm a loser. Like she's a lawyer already. And it's like, and I kind of like snap out of it. Like, what the heck was I just doing?
Right.
And it happens to all of us, but if we can automate stuff, like even reminders that pop up on our phone that keeps us on the most important thing that needs to accomplish that day, right? Like, for instance, you wake up in the morning, everybody has good intentions, But then you wake up in the morning and you just start easily get pulled into whatever just comes your way, right? And that could be emails or whatever else. But if you have like a reminder that pops up on your phone, you pick up your phone and it says, do your gratitude journal, pray, affirmations, visualization, and it just pops up. Now you're like, okay, this is what I got to go to first before I go to that, because everything again holds value. Everything holds a quantitative value to it. So for me, Brand, like I knew when I'd open up my phone early in the morning and I start checking emails, like, dude, I would start to feel like overwhelmed. I would be basically chasing the day. I'd be putting out fires. I would be just, going through and working from a state of just, I guess, anxiousness. Like, let me get this done. Let me get that done. But what I realized is that if I cannot do that right away, and I could wake up, do gratitude journal, go through these certain things that I know for me and my schedule allow me to operate at my 100% level. Yeah. Because the thing is this, some stuff you got to make sure it's in your schedule and it's a big block, because that sets your mindset up to go out there and start creating and generating the things that you desire in that day. And now I'm able to go out there and make things happen in my day, opposed to let things happen to me, right?
Yeah, I think that's what most people do, is because there's so much going on in life. Like, no one just wears one hat. Like, you're a mom, you're a dad, you're an employer, you're a soccer coach, you're whatever it is. We have a million things going on in life. And if you're just living every day with no plan, with no automation, it's like then you're just reacting to everything that's coming your way instead of being proactive. So if you get that email and you don't check emails until after lunch, well, then you're focused on the task at hand right then. And so it's funny you say like the whole bill thing, right? Like, set your bills up on automatic payment. I remember there was a time where like I couldn't do that, because you're like, hey, I don't got enough money to be having those automatic payments. Like, I got to make sure the money's in there, right? So maybe that's you right now. So if that is you, instead of just like thinking about the bill all the time, thinking about when you're going to pay that all the time, have a time in your week. Maybe it's Sunday night where you go, hey, Sunday night I pay bills from this time to this time. Like, but you don't think about it the rest of the week. Like, it's automated in that time. So you're not distracted, right? When you get the bill in the mail, you're not then thinking about that when you should be thinking about, spending time with your kids or whatever. So like, what systems can you put in place that automate? Like, what day do you grocery shop? Do you grocery shop when there's no food?
Or whenever you feel like it?
Whenever you feel like it, whenever you have like a craving, or do you grocery shop Monday afternoons? Like, that's your thing, 4 to 5. Like, this is what we do. So, I mean, these are very, very practical things, but the point is, like, you got to have some automation in your schedule, or you'll just be living life by the whim of your pants, right? And what you'll end up doing is not getting or not maximizing, not leveling up your life to where you should be living, because you're just all over the place. And so maybe, again, this is very practical, but what is it for you? For me, it's, I know I have big blocks of things that I have to get done every single week. So I have to write a sermon every single week. It's like Sunday come around every 6 days. I got to write a new sermon every single week. I got to film this podcast every single week. I got to go on date nights. I got to spend time with my kids. I got to get them to practice. I have to study all these different things, but I don't just do them whenever I feel like it, because most of the times I feel like doing none of those things.
Right.
Right. But I block it out, and then it just becomes a routine. They're all automated. So I don't know what that is for you, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, dude. And the one thing that I did this past week, it kind of happened by accident.
Yeah.
I started thinking like, okay, what are some things that I'm already doing that if I how can I maximize those things already? I'll give you an example. It's kind of like when I was in insurance. Before I sold the business, I was actively selling for a long time, for 10 years, and I was recruiting and helping agents learn the art of selling and building the business as well. And so what I started doing was I would have an agent drive me, because I'm already driving to see these clients. So they would drive me to the client's house. While they're driving, I'm making appointments, which I need to do anyways to maximize my profit in my business for the next day.
Right.
They're learning how to book appointments at a higher level because they're able to listen to me. So I'm doing like 3 things in one. So I'm able to take that minute,
time stacking.
And get so much more from it. And Penelope was in the run for education like the boys were. Mm-hmm. And she's like, Dad, I want to win. And so she broke her ankle. So she had a cast on all the way up until 2 weeks ago. So she's like, I want to go train. I'm like, well, sweetie, it's in 2 days. Like, we can go for one run. And she's like, well, I want to go on a run. So we went on a run for like, 3.5 miles around the lake. And what I realized is that, like, I want to spend one-on-one time with each one of my kids because I have time, as a family. But one of my desires that I've fallen short of, dude, for years is like I want to every week have a dedicated time for each one of the kids to just connect with them, ask them questions.
Yeah.
But it's not been planned, right, Brand? So it's like it'll happen sometimes it won't.
Right.
So I was like, let's go on a run. And dude, that hour of us running, it was the most quantitative as far as value that I've had with her. Like, she's asking me questions, we're talking about life, we're connecting.
It's good.
And I go for runs anyways because I want to run 1,000 miles this year, which I'm way behind on. I got to catch up. But it's just, it was like, okay, now I've got somebody I'm going to bring with me. I'm already doing that. And it's going to make such a big difference. And maybe it's even meal preps. I remember for a season, like I needed to be so focused on where I was at in the business to get to a level to sell the business where I was like, okay, we got to get this thing going, that I knew that, hey, even if it costs a little more to do these other things, what is it bringing me?
Right. What's your time worth in that? And what are you losing to go
it's like
sit
opportunity
down?
cost.
Yeah, 100%.
And that kind of goes to the next point of delegation, right? This, for me, I didn't really get it right away, but early on I started realizing that, like, I got to sit back and look at a trade-off of things.
Yeah.
And to the point, it was like I had started in the business. There's paperwork. There's all these other tasks you can do, right? And so I realized that I make my most money doing this thing, like helping families with financial services. So I hired my first assistant, and I knew that, okay, even though I was tight with money because I was just starting this business, if I pay them and I free up 10 hours and I'm paying them X amount, and that 10 hours, I can go out there and make way more.
Yep.
But what you got to realize as well is that when you delegate, so for me, I realized that when I delegate to somebody, I can do it better than them initially.
Right.
Because I'm doing it, right? And so my issue was, like, I was judging their ability to do it based off of how I did it, but I had been doing it for so long. And what you got to realize is somebody doing something at 80% capacity of how you could do it is way better than you doing it 100% of the time.
Right.
And so I had to go a little bit further back to train them and slow down. So it actually, I lost time and I was spending money. But once they were trained and ready to go, then I was able to lift that lid way higher because now all my time that was allocated to that, I could now place somewhere else. And so delegation was a big deal. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's like the first fear that comes along with being an entrepreneur, like being a leader, is delegating tasks, because you know that you can control the outcome of something because you've done it, you know what to expect. But as soon as you bring someone else on the team and give them that responsibility, then just like you said, well, it's going to take a drop in, quality. Probably it's going to take a drop in quantity. Like, it's going to take a drop in how it gets done. And that's fearful as an entrepreneur, as a leader, because you're like, well, it's going to cost me money. It's going to cost me time. It's going to cost me, like, energy spending with this, like following up on it. And so, like, I think John Maxwell says, if someone could do it 80% as good as you, then give it to them. Yeah. I think Craig Rochelle takes it one step further. He says if they could do it 50%, so somewhere in that sweet spot, 50 to 80%, if they can do it, then give it to them. But again, it's almost like, so there's two ways to delegate, right? This is not an original thought. This is Craig Rochelle. So shout out to Craig Rochelle. He says, when you delegate something to someone, you're doing one of two things. Number one, you're delegating either to gain followers, right? So if you just give someone a task, so it's like, hey, copy this, paste this, print this, send this, then what you're doing is you're just creating a follower, right? So you give them a task, they're just listening to you, they're just getting it done. Or you can delegate authority, which is then training up a leader, right? And so who are you delegating to, and what's the purpose of you delegating? Are you just delegating menial tasks because those people will come and go, right? Or are you trying to raise up other leaders under you who then can delegate even further? And that's how you expand your organization or your business. So it's like, hey, I'm not only delegating a task for you to do, but I'm going to delegate authority, which is even scarier as a leader because I'm giving you permission to then lead others, delegating authority, but then it gives them permission to then step into their role and really figure out who they are as a leader, right? And it's one of those hard things to do when you know you could do it better than everyone else, but it's like, I'm going to give this off to someone else. And so delegation is a hard thing to do, but if you're leading anything, even if you're leading your family, it's like,
Delegate to your kids?
you got to delegate to your kids. It's like, yeah, of course you can
Clean the house.
clean the house better than your kids. Of course you can mow the lawn better than your kid. Of course you can do whatever it is, but it's like, if you never delegate them, then number one, you're not expanding like your purpose and your role by leading them well, but then they're not learning the necessary skills that they need to learn to step into who they're called to be. Right. And so, yeah, delegation is big. Yeah. It's scary, but it's necessary.
It's a big deal, man. And 100%. I love what you said, raising up leaders, because that's what it is. I mean, it's one of those things where you think it's easier, but in the end, it costs you in them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it costs you in the ability to free up more time and do the things that really kind of give you positive energy, that help you thrive. Because some of those things that we could delegate, maybe you got to ask yourself, like, what am I holding on to that if I delegated, man, my energy level would just go up so much more. Like, I wouldn't feel overwhelmed or exhausted or stressed, because that little task is just kind of eating me away, right? And figuring out, what can I delegate? And I think this is a conversation where at the end of it, it really requires people to step back and say, okay, let me ask myself these questions. What can I eliminate? What can I automate? What can I delegate, right? And then the fourth being, what can I procrastinate? And I know that sounds like kind of an oxymoron. Like, what do you mean procrastinate? That's not a good thing. Well, it's proper procrastination, right? It's intentional. It's purposeful procrastination. And I think this is a very important topic that I think, especially for nowadays, man, is so essential, is knowing how to purposefully procrastinate.
Right. Like, what's urgent, what's important, what's necessary, what do I do right now? Like, hey, mowing my lawn, man, that's important, but it's not urgent. Like, it's not gonna ruin my day if I don't mow my lawn today. It's important. I got to get it done so I don't get a fee from the HOA and all that kind of stuff. But it's not urgent, and so like I procrastinate that to a later time in the week, even though like it sounds funner to do it right now than do this training call or whatever it is. But it's I'm purposely procrastinating that so I can add more value to what I'm doing right now. And so, what is that for you? I'm trying to think of a good example, a practical example. Purposeful, like, don't procrastinate like working out. That wouldn't be a good one.
Well, I mean,
like what would be a good one?
Well, I mean, I think for anybody, it's like it's doing the thing. Like you said, everybody's got all these hats, right? Yeah. So it's like you working, running your business, and then also leading a church. It's like those things all have a place in the schedule. But if all of a sudden something pops in your head, like, oh, I got to take care of this for my work, but you're preparing for your message, you got to say not now. Right. And everybody's got that, right? They've got something where, all right, you're focused on this, but you have other things in your day. Yeah. But those things must have a place, because if they don't, then you're going to get nothing done, and you're going to be overwhelmed and exhausted at the end because you're task switching. Yep. And that has a massive cost to it as far as energy and time. And so, for me, Brian, like the one thing that I can't remember where I heard it, but it was called like surf the urge, right? And so that temptation to do something that needs to be done, but it's not as important or urgent on what you've actually planned. And so the concept was like, when you have that, just say not now. Because if you say no, then you keep thinking about it. Right. But if you say not now, it's just like, okay, just not right now. Yeah. Right. Not right now. I'm not going to do that right now. And so I'm going to hold on to it later. That's good. And then you get back to the task, because just like a wave, man, like it goes up, it has a crest, and then crashes down. Yeah. And a lot of times that's what that temptation is, to your point about, the great tempter that comes to distract and really pull us off the task, because we know what we need to be doing, especially if we put some planning and preparation. We know, like, okay, this is the stuff I need to focus on today, but he'll come in and try to like pull that away. Yeah. And sometimes it's with something that's important, like, oh, I need to call that person back. Yeah, you do, but in a certain time. Right. And so what made a difference for me to help with the proper or the purposeful procrastination was I have every day an hour blocked out to just deal with tasks. Right. That's good. And so I've got my big blocks I need to take care of. That's running these different businesses. It could be real estate investment, these different matters. But then from like 1 o'clock to 2:30, I have time set up to take care of whatever I need to take care of. So something pops up, I'm like, okay, not now. I might write that down. Yeah. And I forget about it. And then come 2 o'clock, it's like, okay, I got to go through these things. And now let me rank them from 1 to 10. which one of these 12 line items on my task to get done is most urgent and important.
Yeah.
And I just start checking those off. Now, the reality is once I get done with those, and the truth is I never get done with all of them in that block of time.
Right.
Dude, never really. So now I got to be disciplined and say, okay, I got to go back now that time's over. Let me get back on to what's most important, which is what's in my actual schedule. And so I think just surfing the urge is crucial, man.
That's good.
And dude, for me, it's emails. Like, dude, if I'm like, I'll just get distracted and pull up and I'll check my email. Like, did I get a new email in the last 3.5 minutes, right?
It's that dopamine hit.
Yeah. And opposed to like, all right, I don't need to check emails until this time. From this time to this time, then I'm going to check my emails.
Well, I think for me, one of the worst feelings that I've experienced is not being 100% present. Like, I think that's one of the worst things. Like, if you go on vacation and you know your mind's like somewhere else because you didn't do what you needed to do in that place, it's one of the worst feelings that you could have. And I've been there. I've lived that way for a long time. You know, it's like I should be doing something else, or I should have caught up on something else, or I procrastinated something that I should have done in the moment, and I didn't procrastinate something that was less important. So it's just time blocking, like what's important in the moment, not getting distracted. It's like everything we've been talking about. Like, how do we automate? How do we delegate? How do we procrastinate proper things? And the last thing is how to properly reflect on your schedule. So for you, I know like you, I've heard you share this a couple of times, like Sunday night, you'll kind of plan out what the week ahead looks like. Yeah. I've started doing that same thing as well. I do it a little differently, but for me, it's like I run a Google Calendar, right? So for me, everything from my business to the time I prep for church, it's all like on a calendar. Most people don't live life on a calendar, right? But I got to reflect on that every single week and say, okay, what's important? What do I have to get done? What worked? What didn't work? But proper reflection is what's going to set up your week, your day, your life, your month for success. And so how do you, maybe for you watching online, like you got to reflect, where are you wasting time? Where are you spending time? What's big blocks? What's less important things? Like, how could you move things around that are more important to you? Because the goal of all this is to get you to a place where you're like fully optimized. You're living the life that you're called to live, and there's no wasted time in there. Now, this could sound like you're turning yourself into a robot. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, there's times where, like, at least for me on my calendar, I'm like, hey, I got nothing to do right now. Yeah. Like, let's just go have fun. Let's just hang out. Like, we sat in the jacuzzi for like 3 hours the other night. Like, that wasn't planned. So like, there is moments in life where you just hang, where you just, you know, but those times are like Sunday afternoons. That's what we do. You know, it's almost like it's planned anyways.
It is, yeah.
With unintentionally planned, but like, you should be fully reflecting on your calendar and on your schedule. And like, for me, it's like, I got big goals, I got big dreams. Those things are written down, but then I have to-do list every single day. I'm reflecting on my to-do list. And one of the best feelings is checking boxes, like the to-do list, like got that done. That's like the little dopamine hit, like got that done. And you're right, you never check them all, right? But then it's like,
did you check the right ones?
And then it's just like this, I don't know, man. It's just like,
it becomes fun though, dude.
100%.
I mean, like, it becomes something where, like, you start to know yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, like, self-mastery is such an important thing because everybody's different. You know, like, what's going to fill you up might be something different that's going to fill me up or you up, Brand. But knowing that, and that knowing only comes from reflection, right? I think Socrates said, like, an unexamined life is a life that's not worth living. Like, you've got to examine your life, right? And it's a whole, you know, when you sit back and you reflect upon your experiences, what you're doing, and you really audit your time, man, it becomes so rewarding. So most people would say, man, these things fill me up more. Maybe that's just like spending time with your spouse, going on walks with your family, enjoying time with the family. Maybe that's sitting around watching a movie.
Yeah.
The reality is, like, everybody can have more of that if there's more intention and more reflection on your actual schedule. So the purpose of all this, right, is what? Like, well, to go through your schedule and say, okay, what do I need to eliminate? Because that just it freed up time. And what are you going to put in there now? Maybe it's something that's going to help progress your business, progress your relationship, progress your fitness. Right now, I've eliminated that. Now I have more time. What are you going to do at that time? Oh, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to go do this, or automation. Man, these tasks, they wear on me. I got to do them and then what's my energy tied to that task? Like, I got to think about it. It's annoying. I hate doing it. Like, if you hate doing something, and when you do it, you're like, I hate doing this.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. The question is, instead of just doing it without intention, have you asked yourself, can I eliminate this? Can I delegate this? Can I automate this? Or can I procrastinate this to a different time where it's less taxing on my emotions and on the way I feel about it, on my energy level? Because again, it all holds value. And I think that's the purpose of this, right? Is reflecting. And so, and then it evolves and adapts. So for me, Brand, like you're right, I used to do it Sunday nights. And then I realized that, like, dude, I was doing a poor job in sticking to that. And if I wasn't reflecting, I just jumped into my Monday. Dude, that week was so much more unproductive.
Yeah.
I mean, by a long shot, dude. I'm talking like significantly. I mean, I think they say like 30 minutes of planning will cut down on 2 hours of something, right? And so Sundays, it's like, that's when I'm with my family, hanging out with the kids. Like, dude, it'd get to like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, and I'm like, now I want to just kind of hang out with my wife. And so Sunday became a day where, dude, I don't do nothing as far as planning, reflecting. It's just I'm there. So Mondays, I wake up a little earlier, right? I usually wake up between like 4:35. Mondays now, I wake up at 4, and I spend that first 30 to 45 minutes planning out my week, and I don't do it on Sundays. But I learned because it became a task that I hated.
Right.
It almost took away my Sunday because I was thinking like, man, I got to reflect, you know, I got to plan. I haven't done that yet. And so, but I learned that because I was doing it. Yeah. And I started to reflect on that.
Right.
So when I started to do it, I was like, I need to switch this and procrastinate to a later time because this is not a time I should be doing it.
Well, I think it's making the point, right? You have to reflect. So for you, maybe you just, you know, almost crash your car because Paul said he wakes up at 4 a.m. You're like, I could never. But like, again, that only comes from self-reflection. Maybe you know you better and you're a night person rather than a morning person. Like, do what works best for you, but you have to spend time reflecting. Like, do you wake up in the morning and you're full of energy? Like, you're just, because there's some people that's like that. Like, me and Mariah are both not like that, right? Like, we'll get up early if we have to, but like, we're both dragging in the morning. At night, like, kids are bed, we're more likely to stay up and get stuff accomplished. Maybe that's you. Maybe you can get up at 4 a.m. You're only going to know like where you have energy and where you're drained based on reflection in your schedule. And if you've never reflected on that, you're not going to know. You're just going to be unproductive all day, you know, and dragging through it. So sit back and go, hey, when do I have the most energy? Man, is it 3 to 5 o'clock? Well, maybe that's the time where you should be doing the most productive thing in your day during that time, as opposed to, you know, because every other podcast guru says get up at this time, and you know you can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. Like, it doesn't make a difference. The point is you got to figure out who you are, you know, reflect on your situation, your family, kind of what you got going on, and figure out self-awareness, right?
Dude, it's such a big deal because
100%.
Dude, everybody's chasing that next level version of yourself, right? Like, you know, we all have this viewpoint of like who we could be and should be, right? And then where we're at currently. And for me, dude, my struggle is always like not feeling like I'm getting close enough to that version, right? But what I realize is a lot of times that's just my dysfunction and is thinking like I'm not good enough and trying to figure out how to catch that. And that's where I got to spend time with God, releasing that and realizing that's my downfall. And I got to seek God, and then that starts to work that out. But at the same time, I do know that when I spend time reflecting and with high intentionality, I get a lot closer to that ideal version. And so for everybody on here, you know, we've done some podcasts in the prior episodes, which we really kind of unpacked, like, you know, how to develop the right habits, how to go, you know, build a bag of reasons, like how to know what that ideal version looks like for you. Like what does the ideal dad look like, or mom look like? What does the ideal spouse look like? What is fitness wise, like what would you want to look like financially? What does that look like? And then last week we talked about processes and a couple weeks back on what a process looks like. So I think, you know, going back through those, you'll see that, you know, everybody's a lot more alike than they are not alike. You know, we all have dysfunctions. We're all messed up. We all have good intentions and fall short. These are some things that just help you get a little bit better, right? And so, you know, as you look at all those things, now it's time to really reflect, interrogate your reality. Because a reality that's not interrogated is a reality that's always going to stay the same. And so how can we look at all that, unpack it, and get better? And so
just I just hope that when you die, your tombstone doesn't say your name busy. Like they were just busy. You know, I think that's the lie that we tell ourselves all the time. Like, I can't do that just because I'm busy. I think that if you were to reflect and really look, you're not as busy as you probably think you are. Like the 2 hours a week that you spend watching Netflix, times 7, times 30, times 365, you're going to find out you got a lot more time than you think you actually have to do what you should and could be doing. So
I love it, dude.
I think we gave some value today.
Yeah.
Hope this helps.
Hey, the one thing I would leave just as far as like the perspective on like a life, like, you got to realize that, man, the days are numbered, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's healthy to say, like, dude, how many days do I got left? Like, if I'm going to live to 110, and I'm this age, how many days do I actually have left? And I believe that, like, for me, I've always said I'm living until 120.
At least.
Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, 121 for me.
Yeah, 121. But dude, like I've literally, like, I think about that. Like, I'm gonna live to 120.
Yeah.
Because if I don't pick like how long I'm gonna live, I just feel like I don't have a goal. I'm not gonna get after it. And I feel like you can actually see. I had somebody say, "Well, dude, you're gonna be like a vegetable. What's the purpose?" I'm like, no, I don't think that. Like, I feel like for me, every year, like, I'm getting healthier. I'm thinking bigger. Like, I think even if I did my blood work, it would show that. Like, you can get better each and every year, right?
Yep.
I had my phone show me some photos from like 22, and I know for a fact,
For sure.
I feel better than then, man, because I was off the rails then. But it's finite, meaning that it's important to take a look and be intentional. And guys, the desire, like I said, is every week to get a little bit better, to help you level up in the areas that do matter most. And so we hope this helped. If you haven't shared this, please share this right now, so that way somebody that is unaware, they could become aware, and now they know how to go out there and maybe reflect, plan, execute, and have more of a life that they're looking to live. So guys, go out there, make it a massive week. Appreciate you joining, and we'll talk to you soon.
God bless you guys. See you.